Welcome back. This is a follow-up to last week's video where I played 2 jigs and a bluegrass tune on mandolin, accompanied by myself on guitar. And I thought I'd show you some of the ideas from the solo that I played on guitar during that third piece, Blackberry Blossom, to give you some ideas of how to solo over fast-moving changes in bluegrass. This video isn't about showing you the exact solo that I played note for note with put this finger on this fret on this string. My Patreon supporters will have access to the tablature so they can work it out for themselves. This video is more about showing you the ideas that I used when I was making the solo, and so you can use those same ideas to construct your own. And those ideas are things like arpeggios and chromaticism and linear lines. Blackberry Blossom is actually quite an unusual bluegrass tune because there are lots of chord changes. Now, you could actually get away with playing G through the entire A part and it would sound okay, but the melody really implies lots of different chords. I'll play you the melody so you get the idea of what I'm talking about. Of course, there are countless different ways of playing the melody of Blackberry Blossom, but they all follow this same idea of a little motif that moves down a degree of the scale each time. If you want to work out which chords are being implied by a melody, listen for what notes are being played on the downbeats. So when you're actually playing a downstroke on the guitar. And in this case, the first 4 notes have downbeats on a G and a B, which are the 1 and the 3 of a G chord. But then the next 4 notes have downbeats on the F sharp and the A, and those notes are from a D chord. So all the chords of the A part of Blackberry Blossom are G, D, C, G, C, G, A, D, and then around again, G, D, C, G, and then C, G, D, G. But I would never play those chords that way because the bass line is jumping around too much and doesn't make any sense melodically. So instead, you can use the same idea that the melody does, where the melody is moving down a degree of the scale. You can use the bass line moving down a degree of the scale too. Then the B part has way fewer chords, so it's mainly E minor with a B7, and then it finishes with a C, G, D, G. You could just play bluegrass lines over the entire thing, but it wouldn't be implying any of the chords and it wouldn't be alluding to the melody either. One thing that's fun to do when you're soloing over a bluegrass tune, and I actually think it's quite important, is to refer back to the melody in some way so that you're not just playing over G or playing over C, because so many bluegrass tunes are in those keys. It starts to sound the same if you just keep going back to your same old licks. So listening to the melody and using the ideas from the melody in your phrasing will help make each tune sound different. If you're going to solo over these chords using notes at the same speed as the melody, then you've still only got 4 of them before you have to change to a new chord. So you have to be pretty aware of where these chords are going. And the way I found that's really useful for doing that is to pick a shape, a chord shape, that is the chord that you're wanting to go to, and make a melody around that shape somehow. It might just be playing the notes of that shape, or it might be moving to those notes from notes nearby. So starting with a G, for example, you can play a G here, so you've got the open strings, but you could also play a G here, like an E shape, or you can play a G up here, like a D shape, or you can play a G here, like a C shape, And then finally you can play like an A shape here. The way I started highlighting these chords in the solo from last week was to use arpeggios. Starting up here with a part of a G chord from a C shape. And then going back down, a D chord arpeggio from an A shape. Then the same thing going up on a C, and then down a G, which is from an E-shaped G. Then going up a C, part of a normal C chord. Then down a G, part of the normal G chord. Up an A, part of the normal A chord, and then a D. So together that sounds like this. To link all these arpeggios together, you can just use one of these open D or G notes, and once it gets fast you won't even notice that those notes are even there. On the second time through, a little more melodic line, just to change it up, and then going back to arpeggios to finish it off, so it's like a answer to the original line. But now up here with a C, G, but in a D shape, and then the D in an A shape. And then finishing with the same idea that I did here with the A, I'm now finishing the second half up here. So the solo references the melody and also references itself, where the second half is like an answer to the first half. So putting those two bits together, it sounds like this. Then the whole A part repeats again, and now I'm using chromatic ideas. So rather than having to think of all the notes being part of a chord, you're just aiming for the last note of a chromatic run being the note of a chord. So you can play as far as you want, as long as you land on a note that makes sense. So in this case, I'm just playing 3 notes, and the last note is landing on a downbeat and on a note of the chord, in this case a B, so it's the major third of a G. Then I repeat that idea landing on an A, which is the 5th of a D chord, and then landing on a C, which is the root note of a C chord. And then that's a great sound. Let's do it again. Let's do it over a C. And let's do it over a G again. And then an A. So if you find something you like, do it a few more times. It might work for you over different chords. In this case, I'm doing the exact same pattern. To move from the chord to chord. Again, having this idea, a little motif that shifts with the chords. I then made the second half of that second A part a similar idea to the first half, so I went back to a chromatic idea again. And now I'm doing 4 notes to get up. And then up to a D, and then to a C. And then back to a G again, but now landing on its 3rd note, which is a B. So that all sounds like this. And each of those phrases lands on where the chord changes, not starts on it. So even though you're using lots of unusual notes, it's still making sense. And then finish off more arpeggios. To then get down to the E minor, which is the start of the B part. Then in the B part, there's way fewer chords. It's mainly E minor, and then the occasional B7. In those areas where there's lots of E minor, it means that you don't have to stay on the notes of E minor, which is the E, the G, and the B. People know it's an E minor. Once they hear it for a bar or two, they'll get the hang of it. And so you don't have to really imply it anymore with your phrasing. It means you can branch out and play some lines that have a bit more dissonance or a bit more interest to them. I start the B part actually playing the melody. And then I play a harmony to it. And then back to the melody again. But going to the B. And when I get to the B, I'm then doing a B7 arpeggio, if you like. And then coming back down to land on a G. So that is the 3, the minor 3 of E again. So that whole beginning of the B part sounds like this. Then I do a little hammer-on and a slide. So a bit more of a linear idea. And again, going back to the idea of making a reference to the melody. One idea I used over the E minor in the B part was to keep the open G string ringing while playing a melody up the D string. Often bluegrass tunes are in a single key, so the notes of the G scale will fit over all of the chords. But if you choose which ones over each chord so that they match on a downbeat the note of the chord, it'll make much more sense and it'll make the solo sound a lot more coherent with the chords. The bluegrass soloing idea of adding the blues notes over a major chord, like you would in blues, don't really work over Blackberry Blossom because of the way the chords are moving, and it's such a happy tune. It doesn't have any of those things in the melody. So yeah, put them in at the end when you're back to a G chord, but you only got 4 notes to do it before it changes to another chord again. So it's better to try and follow the melody and follow the chords than it is to resort back to the standard licks. That's all for now. I hope you can take some of these ideas and have some fun making melodies of your own over these chords. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. I make a new video every week and YouTube thinks you might like this one in particular. A big thanks to my supporters over on Patreon. If you'd like to join them, the link is in the description. And to all of you, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.